Okay, so this is the introduction video for GEG3312, where you're going to be looking at advanced GIS. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction here to show you a little bit about the lab manual and where things are and how things are laid out, just so that it's easier for you to know where to find things when you need them, as well as how to navigate through there. And then I'm going to go through a little bit of a step-by-step process, which should hopefully be a refresher on some basics with getting started with ArcGIS, just so that you have an idea of how you should be saving things, where some tools are in ArcGIS Pro, as well as where you might lay things out when you're working on it in there. So the very first thing I want to go through are some of the lab manual layout areas. So the very first one is the general guidelines section. So you can click on that, it'll take you down, and Professor Sawada has laid out a description of what he's expecting for the labs, as well as when you should be handing things in, and then he's created a how-to section for what a good lab report would look like. So essentially figures and graphs and tables that you're going to need to be able to create so that you're able to hand in a properly made lab manual. So in here you'll find good examples, bad examples, as well as explanations as to what went wrong and how it could be done better. So take a few minutes when you have a chance to read through those, and especially refer back to them when you're handing in a figure or a table when you're doing a lab. So I'm going to jump down to Lab 1 here. So we're going to be exploring raster dataset properties in Python. So Python is going to require for you to do some coding within ArcGIS Pro itself, and we'll go through how to open up the Python window within ArcGIS and a little bit of the coding that you're going to need to do later on in following videos. So when you're using the navigation section, you can skip through to whatever question you're looking for. If you do for some reason close it, you can always open it back up by going into the view section at the top and clicking on the navigation pane box there. I find it really helpful because there are a lot of pages to the document, and it tells you the titles of each of the questions as well, so you can easily jump back and forth to what question you're looking for. The videos that we're going to be doing are going to go through how to do the example questions for each of the laboratories, and then from there you'll be expected to apply those example questions to the assignment questions. So the ones that you see in the navigation pane here, questions 1 through 9 in this case, are going to be videos that I'll explain how to do using a video screen recorder such as this, so that we can walk through it together using the data that you'll need, and then you'll be expected to repeat some of those example questions in the questions that are laid out at the end of the Laboratory 1 section of this document. So it'll go through and you'll be expected to answer all of questions 1 through 19, I believe, for this. And then once that's all done, you'll submit that on Brightspace as your final lab report. When you're submitting it, make sure that you don't submit the entire document, just submit the questions and your answers as the final product that you need to submit. Otherwise, the files are really bulky and can take a long time to upload and download when marking. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is just go through quickly a reminder on how to download and unzip data so that it's in a spot where you'll be able to actually find it and access it repeatedly while you're using ArcGIS Pro. So I'm just going to minimize this now. And what I've done already is I've created in my downloads the Lecture 1 zip file, which you'll be able to download off of Brightspace. And if you're not familiar or you don't remember having to do this before, especially because you might be working remotely onto a Windows computer if you're a Mac user, all you need to do is right-click and then hit Extract All. Okay, so once you've right-clicked and hit Extract All, this window will pop up and you'll have access to decide where you want to save the files to, as well as what you're going to name it. So for me, it's called Lecture 1. That's probably what it'll be called when you download it from Brightspace as well. And I'm just going to go into Browse, and I'm going to save it to my desktop into the Lab 1 folder that I've personally created already. If you want to save it into a Lab 1 folder or an Exercise 1 folder, you will have to have created that folder already to do the extraction to there. And I do recommend, if you're going to be working on different computers, or if this computer is not your personal computer, that you save it to a USB so that you don't lose any of your data or the pathway changes when you switch from one computer to another, because you need to have the same pathway every time that you're going to be using ArcGIS Pro, or your data won't be able to be located by the program. So as I said, I'm going to save it into Lab 1. Lab 1 has been selected, and now I can just hit Extract All. It will run and extract all of the data that I needed to, and once that's there and complete, I'll be able to go into my desktop folder and into my Lab 1 folder, and all of the data will show up here. And inside the Exercise 1 folder, you'll see that there's a data folder with everything that you're going to need to complete Exercise 1 for this course. So now that we have all of our data ready to go, we're going to go into looking at ArcGIS Pro itself. You can either run this on your own computer, or you can run it using remote access to one of the school computers. It is a Windows-based software, so it's not going to run on Macs unless you want to use Boot Camp or something else to switch over to using a Windows operating system. If you wish to download ArcGIS Pro, you can go online and Google ArcGIS Pro U Ottawa, and you'll be able to find this file, probably one of the first or second results that will show up, or Professor Sawada will likely have also posted this on Brightspace as well for you to access. If you want to download it, you can go into the second link here, and that'll help you to download it. We're going to be using ArcGIS 2.4, potentially 2.5 at that point in time, so get one of the latest versions of it. And then below there, there's going to be instructions on how to sign in to ArcGIS Pro. If you're not going to be working on a school computer, you're likely going to have to sign in for ArcGIS Pro to work. So I'm going to go through the steps of how to make that work as well. But again, these steps will be posted online on Brightspace by Professor Sawada. So I'm going to open up ArcGIS Pro here, and I'm not signed in at the moment. So in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to go to Sign In. And it'll pop up with a screen for me to sign in. We're going to be signing in to U Ottawa itself. So you're going to sign into an organization URL. And the organization URL that you're going to need is just GSGUO. And continue, and it's going to bring you to sign in to the University of Ottawa, and then you'll be asked to input your information, same as you would use to log into Brightspace or UOzone. My information is here. Okay, and now that I'm logged in, I've been connected to the licensing portal, and I'm going to be able to actually create products in this software. If you're not signed in, it's not going to allow you to work, and unfortunately I do believe that it needs internet connection as well. I have tried to use it without internet access, and it didn't appreciate not being able to connect and ensure that I was actually logged into the University of Ottawa. So once you have that all set up, we're just going to do a quick refresher on how to create a map. And what it's going to do when you click on Maps in blank templates is just create a new file. You can name it whatever you want, and then again you're going to have to decide where you want to save it to. So I'm going to recommend to you that you save it to the same folder where you're going to have all of your data stored. So wherever you extracted your original file for the exercise is where you're going to want to download and save your new project as well. So I'm just going to call this Lab 1. Okay, so I'm just going to go into Browse and then go into Desktop, into my folder here, and select the Lab 1 that I want, okay? Once that's all set, it's going to create a folder for this project within my Lab 1 folder, and I'll just hit OK to create the project. Alright, so this is the default map that's going to show up. You'll be able to change what you want in this map layout as well as add in data, and we'll get through those steps later on, but hopefully you remember how to do that from Intro to Geomatics last year or a couple of years ago whenever you were able to take it. A couple things that we need to go over quickly just as a reminder is to make sure that the spatial analyst is turned on. So that's going to be over in Project. You'll go into there, and then into Licensing, If this is your own computer, it's likely that it's turned on already, but it's always good to check if it's somebody else's computer, so somebody whose computer belongs to the school, or if you're using remote access, the licensing is going to be turned off. Mine is turned off or turned on, as you can see here. If you need to be able to make any changes, then you can go into configure or manage your data licensing and turn spatial analyst on. And once that's all set, you'll be able to do any of the labs that you need to. The second thing that you need to be able to do when you're working in here is open up the Python tab. So if you go into analysis up on the top bar here, in the analysis tab, you're going to just click on Python, and that'll pop up the Python window at the bottom of your screen here. So now that you have your Python window open in the bottom, that's ready for you to do any coding that you're going to need. On the left, you have your content, so you'll be able to see anything that you have on your map that you're working with. And on the right, you'll have your catalog, which shows you your toolboxes, databases, folders, etc., anything you're going to need. So from here, I'm just going to do a refresher on how to insert a connection to a folder that you have on your computer. So what we're going to do is go back up to the top bar and go into Insert, and then Add Folder. From there, I'm going to go back to my desktop, or you go into your USB, whichever you've chosen to save on, and then you can select to go into the folders as deep as you'd like. I'm going to go in and just select Exercise 1 Data so that I only have the information that I need, and everything will save to there. And once I've done that, I click OK, and in my Folders tab over here, I'll have the data, which will show me elevation and land use, the files that you're going to need for this first lab. So hopefully that was enough of a quick refresher on how to do some basics on ArcGIS Pro. And again, when you just go to save it, you can go into Project, Save, and it will save to the folder that you originally created the file in. So that for me will be into my desktop Lab 1 folder or wherever you've saved it to.